Okay, my name is Howard Eber, and I am an alcoholic. Um, you know, uh, Joe and Charlie, and if you're not familiar with who Joe and Charlie are, it'd be a good idea, it'd be a good time to do that. Just Google Joe and Charlie, and you'll find plenty of their recordings, usually the same one from Las Vegas. But um, Joe and Charlie said that this chapter deals really with one thing and one thing only, and that is the failure of self-will. In other words, the insanity of the first drink. Uh, and for those of us who may not like the solution, Bill has laid it out in the spiritual experience, and he's aware that some of us aren't going to like this solution. So he gives us this chapter where he tells us what happens if we don't find this spiritual solution. And the step two states that we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And that indicates that on some level, we have to recognize that we've been insane. If the step is going to restore us to sanity, then we had to start somewhere by recognizing we were insane. And I don't know about anybody else here, but I had a lot of trouble with that. I was not so ready to say, yeah, I'm insane. I thought I did a lot of crazy, stupid things when I was drinking and drugging, but I'm not doing that anymore. So don't tell me I'm insane. I'm as sane as anybody else right now before I take that drink. And I had to, in doing this work with the big book study, I had to learn how to use a dictionary again. And when I looked up the word sanity and insanity in the dictionary, I found that sanity is defined as the ability to recognize the truth in any given situation, the ability to recognize the truth. So if that's sanity, then insanity is belief in a lie. Belief in a lie. And if that's the definition of insanity, I most certainly am guilty of that. Every time I picked up that first drink or drug when I was stone cold sober, worst mistake I ever made, biggest, stupidest thing I ever did, I did sober. I made a decision to put that chemical in my body. And in this chapter, we're going to go inside the mind of a couple of alcoholics just before taking that first drink, when they too are stone cold sober, or as Joe and Charlie says, stark raving sober. And we're going to ask, can or can they not see the truth about alcohol? If they can see the truth, if we can see the truth, we're sane. And if we can't see the truth, we're insane. And like many great teachers before him, Bill uses these examples, factual or not. And we're going to get into these stories and talk about what the background is, but the point of the story is what's most important. And so Bill is going to tell us through our friend, a man of 30, through our friend Jim, through the jaywalker, and through good old Fred. And each of them failed to pursue a spiritual solution to their problem. And we're going to see if we could detect the point at which they crossed over from being sane, recognizing the truth, to making a decision based on a lie. We're going to see if they can or cannot see the truth about alcohol. We're going to try and identify what is the lie they told themselves that allowed them to commit that mistake. And it's the lie that imprisons us. Remember, it's the lie that keeps us imprisoned in this hopeless state of mind and body. And as corny as it sounds, it is the truth that will set us free. So what we're going to do is we're going to look into these things. And oh, incidentally, I got off on a sidetrack here. I forgot to pursue something. I told you I had difficulty with the concept of insanity. And looking it up in the dictionary wasn't enough because I learned that What I thought was insanity was inebriation. The crazy, stupid things I did when I was drinking or drugging, or because I was drinking and drugging. That's called inebriation. That's being wasted. That's being high. That's not being insane. The crazy, stupid things I did while I was under the influence were because I was under the influence. These are chemicals that lower our inhibitions. And if you get a head full of chemicals that lower your inhibitions, watch out. Watch out, because you're going to do some things you wouldn't ordinarily do if you hadn't lowered that line of inhibitions to where it doesn't even exist anymore. And those crazy, stupid things we did are intoxication. They're not insanity. So when I recognized that, I knew that I was insane when I made a decision to cross over based on a lie. The chapter we're on now is on page 30. We're talking about more about alcoholism. And I like to add a word there, more truth about alcoholism, because that's what we're going to learn about here. More truth about alcoholism, specifically the obsession. We're going to learn about what that looks like in various cases. So we're going to learn more truth about alcoholism, and we're going to learn more truth about recovery. This chapter very much talks about step 1 and step 2. So let's begin the chapter. And as I go through this first paragraph, I'm going to ask that you circle certain words. And I'm not going to explain why. I will in a few minutes. Once we get them all circled, just trust me and go along with it. Indulge me, if you will. Most of us have been unwilling, and I'm going to suggest you circle that word, unwilling, to admit we were real alcoholics. I've underlined real alcoholics, and as I said before, every time I see the word alcoholic in this book, above it I put A/O, which means allergy and obsession. And I do that so that I can always remember that he's talking about me. If I just say real alcoholics, I could convince myself he's talking about you. It's not me. But if I say the person has the allergy and the obsession, now I know you got to be talking about me. So I always put that above the words real alcoholic and some other words that mean the same thing. To admit that we were real alcoholics. No person likes to think he's bodily and mentally different. Let's underline or highlight bodily and mentally different. What does that mean? How are we different in the body? Because we have an allergy. You have a physical allergy, a physical reaction to the ingestion of alcohol. If you're allergic to strawberries and you eat one, you have a physical reaction that manifests itself in hives, rashes, itching. When we take this chemical into our system, it manifests itself in something you can't see, like a hive. It is that craving. The first one demands the second screams out for the third, and by the time we get to that 10th drink, we want that 11th drink more than we've ever wanted anything in our lives. And that is a physiological reaction. We are not making that decision. We're not deciding. We may think we are, but we're not. Once the alcohol is in us, the craving is taken over. The allergy is taken over. So no person likes to think he's bodily, physical allergy, and mentally different. And above mentally, it's the obsession from his fellows. Therefore, it's not surprising that our drinking careers, I love that, career, it was a full-time job, wasn't it? And it paid shit. And the benefits just were non-existent. But it was definitely a full-time career, 24/7. Someone's asking to put the highlighting guide in the chat. I'll just review it for you. What we do around here is kind of anal retentive, but I suggest that we highlight general highlights in like yellow. But specific colors like pink is for prayers and promises. Green is for musts. And I know people say there are no musts in the book, so maybe you could use a dried up highlighter, but I would suggest you get a brand new one because there are a lot of musts in this book. I think at the last count, we had about 141 of them. And we highlight them all in green. We highlight recovered references in yellow highlight, and we highlight approach references in blue. Somehow in our culture today, it became acceptable to wait to be approached by the newcomer, to say, well, if he wants my help enough, he'll come ask me. Well, nowhere in the book does it say that. It tells us repeatedly our job is to approach the newcomer, the person who's struggling, the person who's new, the person who's sick, rather. So we highlight that in blue. So someone will put that in the chat. You'll have it all. So if I say highlight bodily and mentally different, it's in yellow, just general. From his fellows, therefore, it's not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless attempts. Please underline that. Was someone trying to get my attention? Countless vain attempts. In other words, unsuccessful. That our drinking careers have been characterized by countless unsuccessful attempts to do what? To prove we could drink like other people. Got 159 people here today. Any provers here? Any provers amongst us? Yeah. So I guess he's right, huh? Okay. Countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. And I'm going to suggest you highlight the rest of the paragraph in yellow. And I'll slow it down a bit, give you a chance. The idea that somehow, someday, he will, please underline, control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. Please underline abnormal drinker and above it, A/O. I'm an abnormal drinker if I have the allergy and the obsession. Remember, in our very first week together, we defined the allergy as an abnormal reaction to any food, substance, or chemical. Normal drinkers have one or two or three of a couple of drinks or a couple of lines or a couple of hits of whatever's going around. And at some point, when you ask them if they want more, they're going to say, I'm starting to feel it now. I'm getting a little queasy, and you got to drink through that shit because the promised land is about 4 or 5 hits beyond that. But the point is, they say no, either because they think they're going to be getting sick if they do any more, or they'll say, I got to drive, so I got to take it easy. Or they start using some very strange terminology. They start to say things like, I've had enough. I'm right where I want to be. I don't know what that is. I always drank and drug with the expectation of arriving right where I want to be if I just had another one or just another one or two. Like I said, I got to drink through that initial queasiness to get to the promised land. And the promised land is always 4 or 5 drinks away from me at all times, at all times. So
it's also like normal people don't have this great obsession to control and enjoy their drinking. They just do it like normal. They don't have an obsession.
That's right. Normal people don't deal with that. So, and I've asked that you underline, incidentally, control and enjoy, because the more we control our drinking, the less we enjoy it. The more we enjoy it, the less we control it. So it's an interesting choice of words that he has here. And please circle, I ask that you're going to circle a few words. We're going to start with the word obsession. Please circle the word obsession. And I've actually underlined great because it's not just an obsession, it is the great expectation, great obsession. We're on page 30 in the study version as well as the 4th edition. They're the same pages of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion, please circle illusion, is astonishing. And what is the illusion we're telling ourselves?
That we can control and enjoy our drinking.
Exactly, that we can control and enjoy our drinking. Many pursue it into, not up to, but into the gates of insanity or death. Please circle the word insanity. So we've got 3 words circled so far: obsession, illusion, insanity. As I said before, I mentioned, we highlighted everything at the end of the last paragraph. I should have mentioned into this one. These 4 lines or so of the next paragraph are highlighted in their entirety in yellow. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. My God, there's so much in that. Let's slow it down a bit. First of all, we learned. How did we learn?
Through our drinking experience.
Through our drinking experience, but also,
Pages before.
right, through the doctor's opinion and chapter 2. We've learned that we had to fully concede that we were alcoholics. That's what the doctor's opinion was telling us. That's what Bill's story, and especially There Is a Solution, was telling us. So we learned, and I've underlined learned, and above it I've written doctor's opinion in chapter 2. That's where I learned it. We had to, and we had to should be circled or highlighted, over highlighted, or over circled in green, because we had to is a must. There's a lot of ways to say must, and we're going to try and identify them all. And here's one of them. Had to means I must. And if you doubt me, just change the words. We learned that we must fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. And of course, alcoholic is underlined, and above it, A/O.
That word concede, I love it. It means to admit it's true after resisting or denying it at first. So if you've ever had relapses or ever been defensive about your drinking and you're here, makes sense to me anyway.
Yep. Well, please notice, incidentally, Kathy seized on it. Please notice it doesn't say surrender. The word surrender does not appear anywhere in the first 164 pages. I don't know if you're aware of that, but surprise, 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 Gomer Pyle. It does not appear anywhere in this book in the first 164 pages. The word that Bill uses is generally a form of concession. And as Kathy mentioned, and to take it a step further, concession, the difference between concession and surrender is concession is absolute, total, unconditional surrender. Germany surrendered after World War I, but they obviously had some resentments and issues to resolve, and one of them was to blame my people for what happened in World War I. So they had to pursue that into World War II, and after World War II, they conceded. They conceded. A friend of mine who has some military experience tells me that in the military, if you surrender, what it means is you either take your rifle or put it up in the air, or you take your rifle, put it down in front of you, and pick your hands up like this, and that's surrender. Concede is you put the rifle down in front of you, you take off your gun belt, put it down in front of you, take the knife out of your boot, put it in front of you, empty your pockets of the grenades and the other little weapons you may have, and then go back 10 steps, get down on your knees, put your hands behind your head. That is concession. It's a lot harder for me to get to my weapons when I concede them and they're piled up in front of me and I'm 10 feet back. There's a difference. Surrender is not concession. Concede, again, means absolute, total, unconditional surrender. And he says this is the first step in recovery. Now, there are some study groups that formally take the first step here. Personally, I think it's a mistake. I wasn't taught that way. We will take the first step after we get some qualifying questions answered in the next chapter. We start off, we agnostics, by taking step one, and a few pages later, we will take step two. But we have a couple of questions to answer before we get there. But his point here is that's really all there is to the first step, is conceding absolute, total, unconditional surrender that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion, please circle delusion, that we're like other people or presently may be, because it comes back, has to be smashed. Has to is again a must. It has to be smashed. The delusion that we're like other people or presently may be has to be smashed. That is the reference to delusion, a drunken delusion. There's another delusion referred to in this book, and you may want to make note of it. Next to where it says the delusion we're like other people, I've written, see page 61-1 for the drunken, sober delusion. Here's the drunken delusion, which is that we can drink like other people. On page 61-1, 61-1.
Satisfaction out of this word.
Yeah, exactly. Kathy knows the line. I'm trying to find it in the paragraph. The paragraph begins with what usually happens. And in the middle of that paragraph, it says, is he not a victim of the delusion? Delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of the world if only he manages well. Rest means to take something with force. That's a great definition, explanation of our disease. Self, convinced that we can wrest satisfaction, we can take it by force out of any given situation if we just manage well. That's the sober delusion, that we can control the world and everything around us if you just listen to me, if you just do what I tell you to do. Right? If only my arrangements would stay put, if only people would do as I wish, the show would be great. If that sounds familiar, it's on the top of page 61. I'm not that smart. Bill wrote it. I just repeat it. So in any case, we have the two references to delusion. Now let's get back to page 30, if you would. And I have asked that you circle those 4 words. Now, if you have the study version, you could write this all in the blank page opposite that. If you don't, you're going to have to find a place to write this down, because we're going to define those 4 words. And let's see if we can see what the similarity is. What is the common thread between these 4 words? The first word is obsession. And we've already defined obsession as an idea that overcomes all ideas to the contrary, but I'm going to reword it here. In this situation, an obsession is an idea so strong it could make you believe something that's not true. An idea so strong it could make you believe something that's not true. In other words, it could make you believe in a lie. Once again, an obsession is an idea so strong it could make you believe something that's not true. In other words, an obsession can make you believe in a lie. Here's word number 2, illusion. Many of us know the great illusionist David Copperfield, right? I saw him on TV make the Statue of Liberty disappear. I saw it. He did it. He made the Statue of Liberty disappear. It was on primetime TV. But did he?
Did he?
I don't think so. Because it's still there. It hasn't moved from where it always was. But he created the illusion that he had made it disappear. So illusion is defined as seeing something that's not true. I saw the Statue of Liberty disappear.
Is it also like what you said about being in the desert?
Yeah, like a mirage, right? A mirage, if you're in a desert and you're so dry and you're so out of your mind from the heat and the dryness that you see something that's not there. You see a spring, you see water, you see an oasis. That's an illusion. It's not there, but you convince yourself that it is. So an illusion is seeing something that's not true. In other words, makes you believe in a lie. Next word, insanity. I don't think we have to go too far there. Insanity is belief in something that's not true, right? We said sanity is a decision based on being able to see the truth in any given situation, which means insanity is belief in a lie. So insanity is something that makes you believe in a lie, something that's not true, like an illusion, like an obsession. And here's the last word, delusion. Delusion, when you've deluded yourself, you've convinced yourself of something that's not true. You've convinced yourself that something is not true.
Is it fair to say like an illusion is outside of you and a delusion is inside of you?
Right.
Is it right?
Right, because an illusion is you're seeing something that's not true. A delusion is you've created something in yourself that's just not true. Yeah, that whack job who killed or took a shot at President Reagan because he wanted to get the attention of Jodie Foster because he saw the movie Taxi Driver and thought that he can get her attention because she played the part in the movie of the person who was being pursued by the whack job who wanted to kill a politician so he can get well known. But the point is, we've convinced ourselves, this guy convinced himself that if he commits this crime, he's going to be famous. Mark David Chapman killed John Lennon because he was delusional. Who knows what he was seeing in his head, but it wasn't the truth. He had convinced himself that killing this person was necessary. In his delusion, that's what he believed. A lie. Cost us all so much. In any case, 4 words: obsession, illusion, insanity, delusion, all mean the same thing: belief in a lie. So he's setting the groundwork here in the very first chapter. He's telling us that we're going to be talking about belief in the lie, about insanity, that type of insanity. Continuing, incidentally, the 4 words that we just talked about, again, obsession, illusion, insanity, delusion. Those are 4 examples of alcoholic thinking, which is drinking based on a lie. If I drink on a lie, it's insanity. If I drink on obsession or illusion or delusion, I'm drinking on a lie. And this paragraph, incidentally, also begins by saying that we are different. We don't like to believe that we're different, but we're different. So how exactly are we different? I'm going to take a little tangent here. I should have mentioned it when we said different in the first place. But we are different. If you look at page 22 paragraph 4, it begins an explanation of how we are different. 22:4, 3 lines up from the bottom of the page. I'll give you a minute to get there. And again, if we started this paragraph by saying none of us like to believe we're different, well, what do we mean by different? Here it is. That once he takes any alcohol, whatever, in other words, any form, smoke it, drink it, shoot it, whatever, drink it, swallow it, shoot it, snort it, it doesn't matter. Whenever you take any form into your system, something happens, both in the bodily craving and mental obsession sense that makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this. And of course, over alcoholic, A/O. And we're going to go into the next paragraph, another 5 lines in this. These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink. In other words, gave in to the obsession. We would never experience the craving if we didn't give in to the obsession. Why? Because that sets the terrible cycle in motion. What is the terrible cycle? Craving. So the sentence says our friend would never take if a friend didn't take that first drink, if he didn't give in to the obsession, he couldn't trigger the craving. And this is the crux of the matter, this last sentence, which should be underlined and asterisk before it and after it. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than his body. My problem is not that I have a different biological reaction to the ingestion of alcohol. It's true, I do, but that's not my main problem. My main problem is that I have a mental obsession that tells me I don't have the physical allergy. And every time I make that decision, sober, to pick up that first drink or drug, I'm crossing over that line. My mind has convinced me that I'm not allergic to this. You know, if I told you I'm allergic to strawberries, and next week I came in here and you all came in and I had a big old bowl of strawberries in front of me and I'm shoving them in my face, the first thing you're going to think is he must be out of his mind. The problem lies not in my body's reaction to the strawberries, but to my somehow convincing myself that it won't happen this time. The problem lies in the mind, not in the body. Can't change my body's reaction. If I'm allergic to strawberries, I'm always going to be allergic to them. So what's treatable about my illness? It's that mental obsession, the thinking that leads to the mental obsession, the spiritual malady, being restless and irritable and discontented. And that's just putting it mildly. During periods of forced abstinence, that's the way I am. And I convince myself that I could somehow, some way handle that first drink. The idea that somehow, someday I will control and enjoy my drinking is the great obsession of any abnormal drinker. It is in our mind, not in our body. Okay, so we kind of got off the tangent here. Let's get back to page 30, if you don't mind. We alcoholics, I've underlined alcoholic, and above it, AO, are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. You notice how many times the word control has appeared? I could tell you, this is the second time he's used the word control on this page alone, but he's not done yet. To control our drinking, and please highlight, we know that no real alcoholic ever, squiggly writing, must be important, regains, recovers control. Control number 3. And of course, underline real alcoholic, and above it, I've written allergy obsession. The real alcoholic, not the moderate drinker, the hard drinker, the real alcoholic. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. All of us felt at times we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably means it's absolutely going to happen, followed by still less control. We got 4 of them in this paragraph alone. By still less control, which led in time to, and please highlight this, I love this phrase, pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. In other words, how did this happen again? Incomprehensible demoralization. Incomprehensible just means I don't know. I can't figure it out. Demoralization is another way of saying confusion. Incomprehensible demoralization. Coming to in the morning with one shoe in Kansas City when I lived in New York. How the hell did that happen? Incomprehensible demoralization. What state is my other shoe in? And why the hell am I in Kansas? Friend of mine used to tell a story that he'd come to in the morning and he'd see this enormous hairy back laying next to him in bed, and all he could think of is, God, please, please make sure that's a woman. Just make that a woman. I don't care what else might have happened last night, but make that a woman. Incomprehensible demoralization. How the hell did that happen again? We're convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type, and please underline our type and above it A/O, it's a reference to the real alcoholic, are in the group of a progressive illness. And I've kind of extended that to and added the words whose ends are always the same: jails, institutions, and death. With all due respect to NA, it's one of the things that they say in the beginning of their meetings. Very, very true. That we are in the grip of a progressive illness whose ends are always the same: jails, institutions, and death. And please, this next sentence is in pink because it's a promise. It is a grim promise, but it's a promise. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better. Please take note of the word any. Any period of time. That means drunk or sober. My drinking is progressive. Some of you know, I've heard my story. I've celebrated 10-year anniversaries a few times in recovery. And when I picked up the first time after 10 years, I'd heard that the disease was progressive, but I thought they meant when I was drinking and drugging. I didn't realize that when I picked up after 10 years of not drinking and drugging, my body reacted as if I'd been using every one of those days in the 10 years that I was not. It's like my disease is running alongside me on a parallel track. And anytime I can get out of my lane and jump into the other lane, and my body's going to react like, great, glad you're joining us, but we've been doing it all along. So this is what you have to take, and this is how often you have to do it, and so on. I got caught out so much fast, I made my head spin. The point is, my disease had progressed even while I wasn't drinking and drugging. So over any considerable period of time, we get worse, never better, drunk or sober. That is a grim promise. Okay, continuing. We're like men who've lost their legs. They never grow new ones. How is that relevant to this, incidentally? Did you ever wonder about that? He draws a parallel. People who've lost their legs. What have we lost? Control. Control. Never had it. But the point is that we've lost the power of choice in alcohol. We've lost the power to choose to stop once we start. Why? Why is that? Because of the allergy. And we lost the power to choose not to start once we stop because of the obsession. We have lost the power of choice in alcohol. So in this sentence, in this reference, the man who has lost his legs, we've lost our legs. Our legs are called control. We don't have any control. You know, it's not about how much you drink. It's not about what you drink. It's not about the consequences of your drinking. It's not about any of that crap. I'm an alcoholic because of my relationship to alcohol in terms of power, choice, and control. I don't have any of that. That's what I've lost. So when he says that we're like men who've lost their legs, they never grow new ones, I never outgrow my allergy to alcohol. Never will I outgrow that. And that's what we're talking about. We've lost the power of choice, not our legs, choice. Neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment now or then. He made a statement, what is this, 1938 when he was writing it, and it's just as true today as it was then, that there does not appear to be any kind of treatment now or then which will make alcoholics of our kind, and underline our kind, and above it, please write the desperate variety. Alcoholics of the desperate variety, of the hopeless variety, not the mild drinker, the desperate drinker. Sorry about that. Of our kind, like other men. Powerlessness is a permanent condition. It's like that guy who's lost his legs. We've lost our legs, called choice. Powerlessness is a permanent condition. So he says, again, any kind of treatment which will make alcoholics of our kind drink like other men. And please underline, we have tried every imaginable remedy. We've tried every imaginable remedy. Why have we done that? Well, I got to refer you back to the previous page. Why have we tried every possible remedy? Because the idea that somehow, someday, I will control and enjoy my drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. So I will try every imaginable remedy because I'm convinced that somehow, someday, I'm going to find one that will allow me to control and enjoy my drinking. There's now 146 people here. Can anyone identify with that? Yeah, I thought so. We've tried every remedy, imaginable remedy. And please highlight the rest of the paragraph if you wouldn't mind. In some cases, and you may want to underline the word some, in some cases, there has been a brief recovery. Right? Anyone identify with that there, where it seems I'm regaining control? This is, I don't know what everyone's making such a big deal about. I'm doing okay. I could handle one again. In some instances, there's been a brief recovery followed always, and underline that word always, by a still worse relapse. Please underline worse. And the reason is because it's a progressive disease. He told us that on the previous page. So there may be brief recoveries during periods of abstinence, but they are always followed by a worse relapse because it's progressive. We don't pick up where we left off. We pick up as if we never left off. Physicians who are familiar with alcoholism agree there's no such thing as making a normal drinker. I've underlined normal drinker, but I've also got a question mark over normal. I don't know what that is. I see people who drink differently from me who are so-called normal drinkers, and I don't get the point. It's just sit and talk to somebody who's will actually drink half of his glass of wine and get up and leave without drinking the rest of it or asking for the bottle for the ride. I don't know what a normal drinker looks like because what I've seen, I'm not the least bit interested in that. So when we say I want to drink like a normal drinker, I've seen them normal drinkers. I'm not interested. It doesn't look like much fun. I drink because I like to get wasted. They don't, for some reason. They don't see the point in this. In any case, there's no such thing as making a normal drinker out of an alcoholic. In other words, once a pickle, never a cucumber. I'm sure you've all heard that expression. Once a pickle, never a cucumber. You can never go back. There's no such thing as being a little pregnant or being a little dead. You're an alcoholic. You're dead. You're pregnant. Either way. Science may one day accomplish this, but it has not done so yet. Despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics, underline A/O, are not going to believe they're in that class. By every form of, please highlight self-deception and experimentation. Please underline self-deception, underline experimentation, denial. Self-deception means denial. And experimentation, that they will prove to themselves exceptions to the rule, therefore non-alcoholic. Do you know that, quote, normal drinkers never go through that process? Normal drinkers don't go through a lot of experimentation to prove that they're normal drinkers. They don't do that. It's only the alcoholic who has to prove to who? To ourselves that we're not alcoholic. They will try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule, therefore non-alcoholic. And please highlight this next sentence. This is allergy test number 1. He's going to give us a few tests in this chapter. I'm not saying anyone should go out and do these things, but he's putting forward some tests to see if you're an alcoholic. And here's one of them. If anyone is showing inability to control his drinking, can do the right about face, and please underline, drink like a gentleman, our hats are off to him. There's test number 1. To start drinking like, quote, a normal drinker. And again, I don't, like a gentleman rather, which is a normal drinker. And once again, I've seen that. I'm not interested in that. So I don't get it when we say we want to drink like a gentleman. That doesn't look like fun to me. But be that as it may, there's one of the tests. If you want to see if you're an alcoholic, go right ahead. Heaven knows we've tried hard enough and long enough to drink like other people. Are there any triers here? Got 140 some odd people. Any triers? Yeah, I thought so. Our hats are off to them. Heaven knows we've tried hard enough and long enough to drink like other people. Now he's going to give us in this next paragraph a couple of examples. Let's look at how we tried to drink like other people. Let's look at some of the attempts to control and regulate our drinking. So I'm going to suggest as we go through this, put a check mark next to it if you identify with it. Raise your hand after I say each one if you identify with this. So here are some of the methods we tried. See if any of you can identify yourselves. Drinking beer only. Change the word beer. I don't care what you put there. Limiting the number of drinks. Gonna stop at 3 or 30, whichever comes first. Never drinking alone. There we go. Never drinking in the morning. I'm just going to keep my hand up. Drinking only at home. Never having it in the house. Never drinking during business hours. Assuming you could hold a job. Drinking only at parties. Switching from scotch to brandy. And you may want to underline scotch to brandy, and above it just write your choice. Fill in the blank. I switched from Jack Daniels to heroin because Jack Daniels was becoming a real freaking problem. So I got to get rid. The problem is the good old JD. So I'm going to start shooting dope. And you know what? That became a problem too. So I started eating pills, which oddly enough became a problem too. And I went back to my friend John Daniels. I got to know him real well. I don't call him Jack. I call him Johnny Daniels. Never failed me. Okay. Continuing. Where was I? Scotch to brandy. Drinking only natural wines. Drinking only natural wines. How about smoking weed alone? Trying the marijuana only approach to recovery. How about just taking Valium? Just Valium approach, right? It's not so hard, not such a big deal. I never had a problem with Valium. Well, everybody who ever had a problem at some point didn't have a problem. And anybody who's been taking Valium for a while can tell you it is a bitch to get off of. They are the worst. Methadone and phenol and whatchamacallits, what do they call Valium?
Fentanyl.
Not first, not
Benzodiazepines.
benzos. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. Benzos. Try and get off of that. So in any case, switching, drinking only natural wines, just taking Valium, just smoking weed, agreeing to resign if drunk on the job, never taking a trip, swearing off forever with and without a solemn oath. Remember, Bill had those solemn oaths he wrote in the family Bible. This time I mean it. Love, Bill. A couple of months later, but now I really, really mean it. And a few months later, yeah, but now on the heads of my children, I mean it. Taking more physical exercise. I did that for a year. I was in incredible shape. I was put 5 hours a day in. I played tennis for 2 hours and I ran for another 3 hours in the course of the day. And I was in great shape, but I couldn't formulate a sentence. You ask me how I'm doing, my answer is couldn't do it. So, taking more physical exercise, reading inspirational books. Can anyone identify with that? Man, I got bookshelves full of those things. How to End Mental Depression in 3 Easy Lessons. That kind of nonsense. Reading inspirational books, going to health farms and sanitariums. Today, they call them detoxes and rehabs. going to detoxes and rehabs, accepting voluntary commitment to asylums. When was the last time you met someone who said, I just got out of the asylum? Rehabs, rehabs, going to rehabs and detoxes, accepting voluntary commitment to rehabs. We could increase the list ad infinitum, meaning just endlessly, endlessly. And like I said before, it could be just, I'm just going to smoke weed or I'm just going to take Valium. I never had a problem with any of those things. Okay. We don't like to pronounce any individual as alcoholic. And please highlight this, but you can quickly diagnose yourself. And opposite that is a question. Ask yourself if you've crossed the line into being a real alcoholic. Have I crossed the line into being a real alcoholic? Or were you too drunk at the time to even see there was a line? Which is my case. I was too damn drunk to see that there was even a line there. Nobody told me about any lines, but I crossed them. In any case, but you can quickly diagnose yourself. Here's allergy test number 2. We had test number 1 in the previous paragraph, which is doing a right about face and drink like a gentleman. Test number 1. Here comes test number 2. And please underline, step over to the nearest barroom and try some controlled drinking. Try some controlled drinking. Next time you have diarrhea, try some controlled diarrhea. It doesn't work very well. Okay, so there's test number 2. Here's test number 3. Try to drink and stop abruptly. Test number 4. Try it more than once. Because we're alcoholics, we're going to try to do it more than once. Like I'm going to get a different result. So try to drink and stop abruptly. It didn't work, but I'm going to try it again. Because it's different today. Last time I did it, it was in the afternoon, and afternoons were never really good. So I'm going to do it in the evening. I got a better shot at that. I have fewer hours to waste. So we're alcoholics. We're going to try it more than once. So that one, number 4, can go for anything. Just try it and then try it more than once. Now, those are the 4 tests. For what it's worth, I'll show you where the 5th test is in the book. So next to where it says try it more than once, let's write, see page 34-1 for test number 5. 34-1. The paragraph begins with, as we look back, we feel we've gone on drinking many years. You see that? Go down 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. Let him try leaving liquor alone for a year. There's number 1. There's number 5. Try leaving liquor alone for a year. If you're a real alcoholic and very far advanced, there's scant chance of success. So there's allergy test number 5. I know we're running kind of late, and there was so much I wanted. I was hoping to get into Richard Peabody today, and we're not going to do that. But Marty Mann, anyone familiar with Marty Mann? One of the earliest women in our fellowship. She founded the National Council for Alcoholism. She did a lot of writing on alcoholism. There's a great book about Marty Mann. Her sponsor was Bill. But she had her own test. Andy, if you could put up the Marty Mann test for alcoholism. I apologize. I meant to put this in the emails. I forgot. So I'll get them in the next email, or you can grab it off Facebook or off our website, and it will be on the website. I promise you, I will get these things caught up. But here's her test. She says, select any time for instituting it. Now's the best time. For the next 6 months, at least decide that you will stick to a certain number of drinks a day. That number to be not less than one and not more than three. So right now, say for the next 6 months, I'm going to have no less than one, no more than three. So we're all going to pick the number, what, 10? Because I don't even have to waste time with three, but we'll follow her suggestion, okay? If you're not a daily drinker, then the test should be stated number of drinks from 1 to 3, and on those days when you drink. Some heavy drinkers confine their drinking to weekends, but still worry about the amount they consume. Whatever number you choose, it must not be exceeded under any circumstances, including weddings, births, funerals, occasional sudden death, disaster, unexpected or long awaited inheritance, promotion or happy events, reunions, meetings with old friends, good customers, or just sheer boredom. There must be no special occasion on which you feel justified in adding to your quota of the number of drinks you're taking, such as a severe emotional upset, the appointment to close the biggest deal of your career, or the audition you've been waiting for your whole life, or the meeting with someone who's crucial to your future and of whom you're terrified. Absolutely no exceptions, or the test has been failed. There's your test. For 6 months, I'm going to have X number of drinks a day. And you know what? She didn't even specify. She said the average size drink. Now that means you can get out a big wash bucket and fill it with Jack Daniels. And one of those is a drink. But I don't think that's what she had in mind. And I don't think if you are able to swallow a whole bottle of it in one gulp, I don't think that's what she had in mind. But reasonable sized drinks. We don't have to take thimble sized drinks. You can take a nice sized drink, but three of them. And again, she says no more than three, so we're all going to pick three. I don't think there's anyone here who's going to go with one for 6 months. See how that works. I doubt we can get more than a day or two. I don't think I could. 6 months, never going to happen. So there's your last allergy test. We're going to stop there.